welcome back. This is the second video in our Milton Hershey series. I'm excited to dive right back in and see. Remember, we left off with you making caramels. How did that go? Good? Did you make sauce? What did you make? Send your pictures. I'm so excited to see. You can do them on Instagram. You can get your moms to do them on Instagram, whatever it might be. But show me what you made. Okay, here we go. Chapter 3, success. I like the sound of that. Along with his secret caramel recipe, Milton had learned something else in his travels. Selling caramels one at a time was nice, but selling them in big batches was better. With one sale to a hotel or restaurant, he could make as much as selling to several dozen individual customers. He borrowed money from a bank to start a small caramel factory in Lancaster. Milton was soon selling his tasty caramels. Then something amazing happened. I wonder what it is. Milton got the big break he was waiting for. He tried one of Milton's caramels and loved it. He placed a huge order that had to be delivered to England in 3 months. With such a big order, Milton paid off a bank loan and bought more equipment and ingredients. So Hershey's factory made the order and sent the caramels across the Atlantic Ocean. So the Atlantic Ocean is the ocean between the United States and England. Milton Hershey was finally a success. The Lancaster Caramel Company boomed. Milton kept experimenting. The caramel got even better. He called it Crystal A Caramel. So when we think of crystal, like if you see a crystal glass, oh, it's so beautiful and perfect and smooth. This is like the best that you could have. Crystal A caramel. And think about even grading in school, an A. So he's putting all the things that are like, this is the best, this is the best. That was a good name. He sold huge amounts to stores, restaurants, delis, and more. Having his factory in Lancaster taught Hershey a few things about location. First, cows on Lancaster farms provided all the milk that he needed to make caramel. Also, Lancaster itself was near one of the new electric plants, so his factory machines had plenty of power. Railroads connected his factory to the places where the sugar and flavorings came from to make the candy, and to cities where the candy stores were sent. He also relied on the hardworking people who lived in the area. Lancaster was a great place for his caramel company, and Milton Hershey loved making candy. Milton spent hours trying new ways to make caramels. He tried putting nuts in some brand. He tried icing. He even made some caramels that were less expensive so more folks could afford them. Milton didn't just play the role of the boss either. He rolled up his sleeves and mixed caramel into huge vats. He wanted to make sure his caramels were the best they could be. By the early 1890s, the company had 2 factories and more than 1,300 workers. Thanks to caramel and hard work, Milton Hershey was soon one of the richest men in Lancaster. He bought a big house for himself and another one for his mother. He also made his first trips to Europe. While in England, he saw that some candy companies were starting to sell chocolate. They were inventing new ways to make chocolate so that it could be easily stored and sold. That got Milton thinking. In 1893, another trip changed Milton's life. That year, he went to Chicago for the World's Columbian Exposition. It was held to celebrate the 400 years since Christopher Columbus had arrived in the New World. For the fair, dozens of new buildings were put up in Chicago Park. All were made from wood and white stucco. The fair was nicknamed the White City. There were exhibits from around the world. People could ride in boats on man-made lakes. They tasted new treats, including something called a hamburger. Visitors rode the world's first Ferris wheel. I don't know if I'd want to be the first one to try out the Ferris wheel. Now we know that they're safe, but that would have been a little freaky back then. In one building with food exhibits, Milton saw something that made him stop in his tracks. A German candy company had made a temple out of chocolate. It stood 38 feet tall. That's huge. About as tall as a 4-story building. Hershey was stunned, and in a building with machinery exhibits, there was iron machines clanking and puffing away. These machines were making chocolate. The J.M. Lehman Company from Germany had set up a complete chocolate making factory right there in the White City. A machine roasted the raw cocoa beans. Another machine ground the roasted beans into a powder. Into the powder went sugar and flavoring. Hershey watched the machine for hours. He asked endless questions. He returned again and again, even bringing friends and people from his company to see the machine. His cousin, Frank Snavely, said that Milton told him, "The caramel business is a fad, but chocolate is something we will always have." Was he right? Yeah, chocolate's still pretty big. Hershey was so convinced that he had bought every piece of gear that Lehman had in Chicago. He even ordered more machines from Germany. He took everything back to Lancaster, where Milton set up the new Hershey Chocolate Company in a corner of his caramel factory. As he had with caramels, Milton experimented. The chocolate made by the new German machines was good, but it wasn't perfect. It was still a little bit bitter. Milton wanted to make milk chocolate as Nestle had done. Milton chocolate was sweeter and lasted longer than the chocolate available at the time. It could be molded into shapes, and it wouldn't melt as quickly as regular chocolate. One big problem: Nestle wouldn't share their secret. Milton returned to his family's first home, which he used as a lab to work out a new chocolate formula. He mixed and poured and sampled and cooked. He tried and tried and tried again, and finally, he got pretty close. Hershey came up with a recipe for a type of milk chocolate. With that recipe in hand, he made a decision. Milton Hershey decided to sell his caramel company and devote all his energy to chocolate. It was a huge risk, but Hershey was confident that the chocolate was his future. Milton Hershey didn't spend all his time working. In 1897, he met Catherine Sweeney, who was nicknamed Kitty, at a candy shop in upstate New York, where he had traveled to sell caramel. She and Milton began seeing a lot of each other. She later moved to New York City and visited her there often. Hershey didn't tell anyone back home about Kitty until after they were married. His family and the candy company workers were very surprised when he first brought her home. Hershey was 41 at the time, a successful and serious businessman. Kitty was only 26 and enjoyed shopping and entertaining and having fun. Together, they would make a terrific team. In 1900, with his chocolate dreams in mind, Hershey sold the Lancaster Caramel Company for $1 million. A new century was starting, and America was about to get its first candy bar. After the sale, Milton took Kitty to Europe. They visited many countries in Europe, including France, Germany, and Austria. They also traveled to Egypt, where they rode camels near the famous pyramids. Milton also made sure to try many types of candy. He was always looking for new ideas for his company. Milton loved spending time with Kitty away from the factory. With her, he could just relax and not be the boss. Milton liked to gamble and play cards. Unlike other wealthy businessmen, he didn't spend much money on himself, but he did love to buy Kitty jewels and furs. Sadly, he also had to spend lots of money on doctors. Though Kitty seemed healthy, she had a disease that often weakened her muscles. Milton did his best to try to help her. He took her to doctor after doctor, trying to find a cure. No one could stop the disease, but they did try to make her feel better for a while. Kitty's illness meant that they could not have children, and that was a terrible disappointment. But Milton and Kitty found a way to have many children be a part of their lives. Even before he had the perfect formula for milk chocolate, Milton took another big risk. He bought 1,200 acres in nearby Dairy Church. That's a place in Pennsylvania. Hershey wanted to build a huge chocolate factory and a town for all its workers. He planned everything from the start so that it would all be perfect. Before the Hershey factory made one chocolate bar, Milton had laid out the streets and parks of his town. He hired architects to design the homes and buildings. He included a bank, a zoo, and schools. Hershey even set up a trolley car line to help workers get around town and to travel to and from the factory. Then he built the huge factory. Its giant smokestacks had his name in big letters. Hershey tried something else new too. He made chocolate on an assembly line. An assembly line is a way to make a product by adding one thing at a time as the products move along a work line. Instead of one worker making a product by himself, the steps are divided up among many workers. Each is in charge of one step, which the worker does over and over. Products can be made faster and in greater numbers this way. In Detroit, Henry Ford, anybody have a Ford car or Ford truck, had used the assembly line to make cars. The plant soon sent the smell of chocolate floating all over the valley. As the workers moved into town, they also enjoyed the smell too. Though the town did not have an official name yet, people were all calling it the sweetest place on earth. While his dream town and factory grew, Hershey kept experimenting with chocolate. Finally, by early 1904, he was satisfied. He had a way to make milk chocolate that could be shipped safely. It was sweet and creamy and could be molded into bars. It would last for several days without being kept cold. All of America, not just Pennsylvania, was about to get its first real taste of milk chocolate. Every bar was wrapped in dark maroon paper with large gold letters that said Hershey. Each bar cost just 5 cents. That's 5 pennies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. By 1905, the factory was making as much as 100,000 pounds of chocolate a day. 100,000. That is a lot of chocolate. Okay, I have a couple things for you to do today. Okay, 1, have you ever seen the show? It's called I Love Lucy. It's really old. I watched it when I was a kid and it was still old even then, and I'm like 100. So think about how old that is. There's a really fun episode, and I'll try to link it to this, but if I can't for some reason, your parents can look it up on YouTube for you to watch. And it is an assembly line of chocolate. But Lucy and her friend Ethel get into a little bit of trouble when stuff doesn't quite go as planned. It's really fun, really funny to watch, and that might be fun to see what an assembly line looks like. Also, another fun thing would be to ask your parents to look up on YouTube. I say your parents because in our house I have to look up what we're going to look for just so we don't see anything that we shouldn't see on YouTube. And so look up different assembly lines. We love watching. I don't know what it is about it. I'll try to link it again. In our house, we love watching assembly lines. We love watching how candy's made, how lipstick is made, how we've literally watched how almost everything in this world is made, perhaps. Anything that's posted, we've watched it. It's fascinating, and just the process in which it goes. So watch some of those. Let us know, hey, what was your favorite thing that you saw on an assembly line being made? I'd love to watch it too, because like I said, love watching assembly lines. Also, a fun activity that you can do today. So Milton Hershey set up his own town, and it will later be called, I'm not gonna give it away, but my guess is it could be in the name, Hershey. But he set up his town. So either, there's a couple options for this. You can get a big piece of paper out and you can draw a town. What would you put in your dream town? Like, my name is Erin, so I'm gonna call my town Erin Town. Okay, so, but you can get creative. You can name it anything you want. Maybe it's named after you. Maybe it's named after your dog. I don't know. You get to choose. It's your imagination. And so what I want you to do is I want you to go and get a piece of paper and draw out your town. Maybe you're like looking down on your town and that's the view. Another option, if you have boxes around, we love doing stuff like this in our house, boxes or like a big piece of wood. If you do have a house full of plasticine or anything like that, design your own house, actually build it up, use toothpicks, whatever it might be. If you have a lot of craft supplies at your leisure, build a thing. This could take days, which is really fun to do. My girls and I did this when we read this book for the first time, and it was really fun. Their towns that they made, and they had cars that went through the whole bit. And maybe in your town, maybe there are no cars. Maybe everybody rides unicorns through your town. It doesn't matter. It's your imagination. So do with it what you will. And again, we would love to see your videos, your pictures of your creations. And you can post them on my Instagram, Erin E. Clark, here, wherever it might be. We would love to see what you do with your town. So enjoy the videos. Maybe go and eat some chocolate or candy. As we're reading this book, we only have a couple more, maybe only one, maybe two times left of this. So I am saying that as we do this, every time we do this, there should be some kind of candy, chocolate chips, chocolate consumed. That's all I'm saying. Your mom might have a different rule, but just I think it's only a couple videos, and I think as much chocolate as you can try to get out of it, I would do that. Milton Hershey says, "Go eat the candy. Go eat the candy. Enjoy." Okay, have a great day.